Hey, it's Jake again, and now we're going to get into something a little bit more useful, actually, something kind of cool. So, in going through these loops, I came across for each, which is pretty cool for a very specific reason, and that reason for me is tags. So, the for each expression solves the two limitations of the count expression. Those limitations were, um, or the resolution is you can loop over lists, sets, and maps to make multiple copies of a source and inline blocks. It doesn't rely on positioning in an array with an index value. So those are the limitations of count, and for each just kind of solve both of those. So in my opinion, it's not like there are four different options. To me, for each was the replacement for count, but count still exists. So here's how it works. If you have a resource, um, if the for each, if you set for each equals to set var.usernames and you have a variable usernames with a list of usernames, the to set is going to convert the variable list into a set because only sets and maps are supported on resources. If you're using a key value pair, you can also use each.key instead of each.value here. This creation of a map rather than an array is a huge win for good reason and not to use count. Now, if you delete a user, it'll iterate on the map and remove the desired user without impacting the other users, which is probably what you intended to happen in the first place when you were trying to use a count or length or something like that. So there's another advantage, and that's that you can have multiple inline blocks. So a good example for each use is using inline tags. So in a variable custom tags, you could create this and then give it a type map string with a default of an empty map string. And this allows users to specify a string. So in my prod environment, I could be like, hey, make a web server cluster from this module from Git. And then here's my cluster name. I've got some variables. And then I'm going to add this custom tag variable. And I'm going to say this environment's prod and is deployed by Terraform. Now what would happen is the idea is I would want to attempt to create a custom tag, prod, and Terraform on every instance created in my web server cluster. So how do you do that? So that lets you set as many tags as you want, and Terraform can loop through your tags and apply them to each instance that's created in the autoscaling group, allowing you to have a dynamic tagging and the ability to set specific tags to each environment. So how do you actually apply that to the pattern in the module? We see how it's used in the root module here where I'm calling the module. We see how it's used in the variable, but in the module itself, what you need to do is I would say we're going to add a tag, right? And that's a name, and the value is going to be var.clustername propagated launches true. No problem. That's a normal tag, right? Well, you can also add something called dynamic. And so if you use the dynamic, and I'm going to make a name called tag, I'm going to use the for each expression and set for each var.customer tags. So for every tag, right, loop on every tag, add the content of the key and the value and propagate it launches true, which means that every time an instance is launched, these tags are going to be propagated, not propagated to the autoscaling group, but the instances inside of the autoscaling group. So we're going to update my module and see what happens. And then a little fun extra I found along the way. Terraform get-update. So if you're using a remote module source, like I did, let's see, where is it? Like a module here, and I said the source is Git. If you're getting an issue where you update the module and you did a Git pull or a Terraform init and it's just not there, you can use Terraform get-update and it will go ahead and pull down, it will re-pull the module from Git, so you should have any changes that you make. I came across that, figured I'd share it just in case you also came across that. So let's take a look at my staging environment. So in stage, I've got in my main file under web server cluster, I went ahead and created this custom tags variable and set this equal to environment stage deployed by Terraform project aardvark, because that's the project that I created. So there, I have it declared in my use of the module, where I'm calling the module in my root module of web server cluster. So the other thing I'm going to need is I'm going to need a variable created in my module, and I'm going to need the, it's actually in here, and I'm going to need the module itself to be updated to have a dynamic tag. So we go look at variables, and wouldn't you know it, I made a variable called custom tags type map string default. You can see here if you hover over it, it'll actually tell you map of string, right? And that map is going to come from our input. But then what I'm going to do is in my autoscaling group, I added the dynamic tag, just like I showed you an example. For each equals var.custom tags, here's the content. Tag.key, tag.value, propagate launch is true. So what happens if you actually apply this? So I'm just going to run a Terraform plan so you can see it, what it looks like. And what we're looking for is we're going to look for how many instances it's going to create, and then it's going to show the tags for each instance. And we can see that right here. So here's my launch template. It says that the max size is 3, min size is 2, and it's going to be applying these tags. It's going to be applying a deploy by Terraform, an environment stage, and a project aardvark. So we can see here it dynamically grabbed tags, grabbed the content, passed the variable to my root module for web server cluster, and then I was able to pass the variables in my module declaration to pass into here, and we can see in the Terraform plan that it is indeed going to create an instance with 3 tags, and whatever your min size is, desired size, max size, depending on your load and all other whatever, however you have it set up. You should have a number of instances equal to that each have however many tags. What's nice about this is I can use this dynamic approach in my module, and then I can go to prod, for example, and I can use the same exact module again, except this time I'm going to say the environment is prod, deployed by a project the same, but I could add like 6 tags here. And what it would do is it would create 6 tags on the prod instances in the prod autoscaling group, and it would create 3 tags in the stage instances in the stage autoscaling group. So again, getting back to a much more dynamic approach to doing something to make each environment customizable, configurable to your needs. And I think this is really my favorite use case of the for each expression. Another one I think would be really great is using routes, using security group inline text blocks or just you should, like I was saying in a previous video, establish separate resources so you could have it loop on resources and have it make multiple security group resources. You could do ACLs, like any number of things. So any inline text resources, whatever, it's all on the table. You can play with any of it. So anyways, that's a little look into how to use for each, and I hope that was helpful. So go ahead and give it a try. Try to update your repo and our repos and add these custom tags in your root module here, and then go ahead and update your module so that you have the module in the variable declared, and then you add the dynamic tag section in the autoscaling group. And let me know if you run into any trouble, but hopefully that works for you, and I'll see you in the next one.